everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to give a few minutes for all the attendees to get logged in. All right, we're going to wait just a moment. There should be a few more people joining us before we get started. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Stanislaus County LPA, part of Legal Professionals, Inc., is excited to have our speaker today talking about the Dementia Directive. And I'm actually just going to turn it over to Gina and let her do her thing. If you have any questions during the presentation, please do put them in the Q&A box, and I will get those relayed over to Gina.
All right, well, thank you, Janice. And I just clicked on the participant name because I'm like, oh, who's joining us? And I see some familiar faces. So shout out to everyone that I know and those of you that I don't know. So welcome. And I'm really pleased to be here today with the Legal Professionals group. I know I've spoken with them a couple of different times, but technology is always good. And it's a nice way to get a new topic in a lunch hour on a Friday afternoon. So as Janice said, Gina Leguria, state planning attorney. My practice is located here in downtown Modesto, but we serve all the surrounding counties, Merced, Stanislaus, of course, San Joaquin, Mariposa, Calaveras, and Tuolumne, and occasionally some of the Bay Area counties, but they do things a little differently over there. So, but with technology, we can do just about anything. My practice is primarily estate planning, but very robust probate practice as well. So that keeps Stacy busy. I know she's on our call today and a very active and esteemed member of the Legal Professionals group. So thank you, Stacy, for all of your hard work and for extending the invitation for me to be here today. So two disclaimers, disclosures, transparency. First of all, I'm a lawyer, not a doctor. So I don't diagnose dementia. I don't have all of the medical science behind dementia. And then I'm also not a medical ethics attorney. So I don't advise healthcare professionals on their duties and obligations with respect to individuals who are making end-of-life decisions. Perhaps that's a whole very boutique area of the law that is a very comprehensive and rooted in constitutional rights. And we'll learn a little bit more about that down the road. So I just make those two disclaimers. I am, though, someone who serves a very large segment of the population that is starting on their dementia journey, because Alzheimer's dementia is very, very common, as are many other types, which we're going to learn about. So I'm here today to talk about what is now becoming known in more legal circles called the Dementia Directive. So oftentimes we have in place a healthcare directive or an advanced directive for healthcare, along with its companion document, a healthcare power of attorney, which would name the agent who would be the advocate for your particular wishes. But this is something, it's been around for a while, but you know, the legal profession is just slow to adopt anything. So with the prevalence of dementia and Alzheimer's especially, we're starting to see a lot more a foothold, if you will, with respect to an accompanying or overlaying dementia directive. So I will jump in. Understanding dementia, the disease, its stages, its impact, we're going to touch on that. And dementia is basically impaired ability to remember, think, or make decisions which are interfering with the everyday activities. So the activities of daily living. You might have heard that term. It's often used when somebody is going into a custodial care type situation, whether that be some type of assisted living or full-on skilled nursing. They do a very comprehensive evaluation about the activities of daily living, or ADLs. So ambulating, walking, self-feeding, toileting, personal hygiene and care, speaking, just all the things that comprise those ADLs, or activities of daily living. And dementia can impact those. So people forget to eat. They forget to shower. They forget to brush their teeth. Just all those kind of basic things. And in some instances, they forget to stand. They forget that they can walk and get up out of the chair and actually move the bodies and the joints and get going. So that's where dementia really impacts people, are on those ADLs, or activities of daily living. Now, it comes, in fact, in many forms. I would say the one that we're most commonly familiar with is Alzheimer's dementia. And Alzheimer's groups are very active here in Stanislaus. We have the support center up on McHenry. And then, of course, nationwide is the Alzheimer's Association, which I was educated. Those two are not related. Our local group is a local nonprofit serving our community, and not part of that larger national organization. So, but they do the same work, and they have very targeted audiences. There is a vascular dementia, and then there can be a mixed dementia with a variety of the types involved. A little less common is Lewy body, although I have several clients who have received this diagnosis over the last few years. And there is some promising, although very expensive, treatment being done out of UCSF and Stanford with the drug company Genentech, with respect to Lewy body. So if you know someone in your universe that is suffering with that, I would get into a big teaching hospital, because they have the best technology and the latest and greatest in medicine and cutting edge therapies and treatments. And then there's dementia associated with Parkinson's. So Parkinson's, we think of shaking and the movements, and first one comes to mind is always Michael J. Fox. And he's lived a very long and successful life with his Parkinson's disease. But there is a form of dementia that is associated with that can work along with that as a companion as things move along. Now, in understanding dementia, and again, no expert, but I will tell you what my families in my practice have expressed to me, is that the individual really changes. There can be signs of anger, confusion, limited enjoyment, or difficulty communicating. Maybe not so much in the speech pattern, it could be in the speech, but just finding the word of what they're trying to say. And it's very frustrating, very, very frustrating. And then this one always fascinates me. I learned this a long time ago in some of my work with Alzheimer's groups, is that the functional loss happens in the reverse order in which the skills were gained. So if you go to an early childhood development chart of all of those baby and toddler milestones, you can just stack that up and look at it in reverse order for dementia patients. So the functional loss happens in that reverse order, if you will, which I just find absolutely fascinating, how the brain works. So dementia is not part of the normal aging process. And what I mean is that as we do age, our brain changes and we're forgetful. I mean, you walk in a room and you forget why you came in that room. And people say, oh gosh, I have dementia. Well, no, that's part of the normal aging brain process and the general cognitive function and the function of the neurotransmitters, where dementia is different than that. So don't be worried if you're forgetting where you put your keys. Just put them in the same spot all the time, like I have to do. There may be behavioral changes, very different behavioral changes, and something cute aside. I work with a lot of folks who are in assisted living facilities, and so the directors there, the folks that run those very nice places, they have to really keep an eye on some of their dementia patients because they tend to have a level of promiscuity that maybe was out of the ordinary for their previous behavior. So one family was just cracking up. They said, "Oh, my sweet little, very prim and proper church-going mother is now quite the social butterfly at the assisted living facility." So just those not normal behavior changes that are very much out of character. And then communication and verbal and nonverbal cues, not paying attention to those verbal and nonverbal cues. And having conversations with individuals or trying to communicate with them can be frustrating on both sides of that equation. So just some things to be aware of. Now, dementia and sort of the evolution of how we come to understand it. A lot of us, our first exposure to it was, I would say in the last 20 years, these celebrity diagnoses that are starting to come out, people being very open. One that was just stuck in my mind was President Ronald Reagan actually penned a letter to the American people, which was read and that he came forward and said, "Hey, I have Alzheimer's dementia," and really came out and said that. And then people became more comfortable with having a mainstream conversation about it. But it just takes some time. Maybe you hear or see that in the community. There are other instances of that. One of my great heroes was Sandra Day O'Connor, who succumbed not too long ago to Alzheimer's dementia, and her husband had before her. So she was his longtime caregiver. It's one of the reasons why she left the Supreme Court in the first place, was because to care for her husband, John O'Connor. But you get these celebrity diagnoses, and then, time, we learn more. When we know better, we do better. And just insufficiency of information and resources, and not understanding everything that goes into dementia diagnosis. I have one particular client who's very, very young, and he has a form of dementia that was brought up by some CTE symptoms. So he was a UFC fighter for a number of years. He is in his mid-50s now, but he has some early symptoms of dementia just based on his CTE and because of his long and illustrious UFC career and all those blows to the head. So those do have some impact. And then, of course, the onset, and when the onset happens. Is it a younger age? Is it an older age? It is believed that it starts very early, and it's only when it manifests itself in some of these other symptoms and signs that we start to see that. So I think the key for a dementia directive is understanding and looking out for it in a very, very early time frame so that you can plan accordingly and take advantage of the dementia directive. Statistics are always astounding to me. So 1 in 9 individuals over the age of 65 are believed to have dementia, and 1 in 3 over 85, which to me sort of says it's part of the aging process, but the science says, no, it's different than that. So of course I need to believe the scientists, but it's very prevalent. I will just say the prevalency and the reporting of cases is, it seems to have skyrocketed. You probably have someone in your universe or family that has some form of dementia or that you have worked with or dealt with. Almost half of seniors with dementia receive some type of help at home. Some do not. We hope to catch them early and get the support that they need, whether that be through in-home support service or care from a family member or what have you. 8 years is the average progression timeline from the mild to the severe. So that's a long time. That's a long time for somebody to be caregiving. And what I see in my practice is a family might come in here early when, say, dad starts exhibiting the first signs of dementia, to make sure that we get a plan in place while he has the capacity and the ability to do so. But then as we go on, the caregiver spouse is the one who falls ill and is dying first because they're so burnt out from giving all of that full-time care. So just something to be very aware of. And most individuals prefer to focus on comfort care when it does become a severe case. So we want to respect and honor those wishes with comfort care. You hear, the phrase is always, well, as long as I'm in my right mind. Or if I'm not in my right mind and I don't know who my family is, then I don't want to do this anymore. So, those may feel like off the cuff comments, but they can be very real wishes that need to be documented and honored and have some legal significance around them, and hence the need for a healthcare power of attorney and an advance directive. Unfortunately, though, most suffering from dementia most likely die in a nursing facility. It happens quite often. And, we all suffered through COVID. And I would say a lot of the death certificates that I was getting and seeing would say Alzheimer's, or would they say dementia and COVID-19. So kind of the dual diagnosis there of things that were happening with that. So before we jump into the stages, Janice, are there any questions at this point?
We do not have any at the moment. Thank you.
Okay. So we're going to talk just a little bit about the stages. And again, I'm not a doctor, I'm a lawyer, but I do a lot of reading on this subject, and an attorney organization that I'm very active with is a very strong supporter of dementia and Alzheimer's. So we get a lot of information about it and understanding it. So there's early or mild, middle to moderate, and later severe. And those, have those labels. And earlier mild are just, things, short-term memory issues, difficulty concentrating, impaired decision-making, hard time with the sequencing steps, do X, Y, and Z, confusion in new places, forgetful of words, trouble expressing thoughts or answering questions, and then losing or misplacing valuable objects. Dealing with money is increasingly hard. Then the grooming begins to suffer. And I would say that's a telltale sign, because those other ones could be just parts of, natural aging. Sometimes, just having, being forgetful of words or expressions. But when you start to couple that with confusion, and maybe the difficulty in the focusing or concentrating, kind of you get the zone out or the blank stare, losing or misplacing valuable objects. So, who's not guilty of that? As I said, putting your keys in the same place all the time. But what I start to notice with my clients is the cell phone. The cell phone, especially if they're in assisted living, they don't really have landlines at too many of them, and their kids rely on their cell phone. And grandma can never find her cell phone. It is lost all the time. And so that really starts to concern people. But dealing with money, but the grooming, that seems to be the big one. When the showers drop off, or the oral care really starts to drop off. And oral care is so important. I have a friend and a client who deals with senior oral care and hygiene in facilities. She actually goes there and does a lot of education, and then they have a mobile dental clinic. But when gingivitis sets in, that can really open up a lot of cognitive issues. So something to be aware of, just to be really mindful of oral care and all that goes with that. And then the person may make their health decisions, but they really rely on others. It becomes part of that patterning and sequencing steps, because, as people get older, they're taking, it seems like, more and more medications. And you have the morning pills, you have the night pills, you have the only with food pills, you have the no food for 3 hour pills. And so that can get really hard. that can be difficult at any age, but it can get really hard as when you're starting to have these sort of early stage mild dementia issues and the over medicating. There are some fantastic devices out there. I have another friend and client who developed a machine. He did it for his mother who has dementia, and now he's marketing it, but it has a timer on it, and it will drop into the cup the pills for that date and time that his mom is supposed to take. So it's pretty phenomenal, some of the adaptive technology that folks have made out there. But I gotta say, by and large, the grooming is a very big one, especially someone who took great pride in their appearance. For women, it was always the grandma was always made up, and as they say, she had her face on was the term they would use. And when grandma stops doing that, we kind of go, And for grandpa or Uncle Charlie, they just stop bathing, right? They stop bathing and they're wearing the same shirt every single day, no matter how many food stains are on it. So just little signs to maybe help increase your understanding and awareness of it. Middle stage or moderate dementia, so take all of that and just turn up the dial a notch or two, more pronounced. But then starting to forgetting your own history. One of the classic things that lawyers will do is, what year is it when they come to see you, or when's your birthday, or where were you born? What's your full given name? And when they start to forget that, where'd you go to school? That's getting into a more middle, moderate stage of dementia, and it becomes increasingly more difficult to do any kind of estate planning in that regard. You have to be very careful and make sure that you have the support and diagnoses of the doctor and what they recommend. Confused speech, moodiness that goes along with all of that. And then perhaps starting to need assistance with some of those activities of daily living, or ADL. So the showering, the dressing, the walking, the eating, or the toileting. I have some clients who forget how to cut their meat. And so there needs to be somebody there who can cut up the meat into small bites so they don't choke or something of those lines. And then just assistance with those other ADLs. Impaired decision making, especially when it comes those decisions regarding healthcare and treatments and medicines, and then depression, anxiety, irritability, and outbursts. Now, if you've ever lived or had someone with dementia in your life, you know that the outbursts can be very volatile and frequent and hurtful. And boy, it's so hard not to take that personally, but you have to remember that's not mom or dad speaking, right? That is the disease. That is the injured brain, if you will. It's not your loved one that's saying those hateful words to you and fighting you every step of the way. It happens, though, unfortunately, to be the longest of all the stages. So if you think we're on that, that kind of 8-year continuum, it would by and large be the longest of those stages in that continuum of early, mid, and late stage dementia. And then finally, that late stage or that severe. So completely unable to remember even the most basic information, like where's the bathroom? Little 1-bedroom apartment, and where's my bathroom? Or in assisted living, what apartment am I in? People going into the wrong apartment all the time. Can't respond to the environment, perhaps total loss of verbal ability, just kind of being present, no control of movement, disorientation. I mentioned that even at home, not knowing where kind of the basics are, the front door, the bathroom, the kitchen. And then very, very sad for all of us, failure to recognize loved ones. So that becomes, that's heartbreaking for the family to go through that. But every once in a while, little glimmers of hope and little stories. I'm just so amazed at how our brains work. They can't remember that I'm your daughter, but you can remember your best friend and the ice cream cone you shared 70 years ago, and the name of the ice cream parlor where you got it and what flavor it was. So it's just amazing to me how the brain actually functions. And then a complete inability to participate in healthcare decisions. again, reinforcing the need for a healthcare power of attorney and advance directive involved in that. And oftentimes these folks at that point are bedridden because there is no control over some of the bodily functions and no ability to do any of the activities of daily living without complete assistance. So we see a lot of these late stage folks in skilled nursing, unfortunately. So good place to pause for a minute. Janice, any additional questions?
Not at the moment. You're doing good.
All right. Well, fantastic. It was nice to have a captive audience here. So let's talk about the form, the Dementia Directive form, and why. So again, this is not something that Gina developed or the Alzheimer's Association developed or any attorney group developed. It seems to have grown over a number of years, but like I said, the legal profession is slow to adopt. So we're just now starting to incorporate more of this into the Advanced Healthcare Directive and learning about why important it is. So typically in the legal profession, we do healthcare powers of attorney and advanced directive, and of course HIPAA. So we talk about when that healthcare power of attorney becomes effective. So there are, effective immediately. And what I tell my clients is that that's the hit by the bus option. You walk out the door, you're hit by the bus. Your healthcare power of attorney is effective right now, and somebody can, take care of it right this very minute. And then we have what's called a springing, or sometimes I think it's called hybrid in some practices I've seen in different states, but springing power of attorney. And that is the one that takes effect when you have doctor's notes or healthcare professional notes. And the old standard was 2 notes from 2 different licensed physicians. And it was very specific, licensed physician, 2 notes. Well, medicine has changed a lot. And it's changed in that sometimes you don't see a doctor. You don't see a licensed physician. You might see a mid-level provider, a physician's assistant, a nurse practitioner. You may not get past the RN that day. So every medical practice is different. Every medical group is different. I guarantee you when you're going to the hospital, you're probably not seeing your primary care physician. They might have privileges at the hospital, but when you check into a hospital, you're seeing the hospital list, and they are strictly employed to serve patients at the hospital during that shift. So very different models that we have for medicine now. So what I find is it's absolutely impossible for my clients to get 2 doctor's notes from 2 licensed physicians. So at most, I generally recommend having an immediate power of attorney. And if you're uncomfortable with that, maybe just having 1 note required from some type of licensed healthcare professional. That could include the physician's assistant or the new nurse practitioner. And they are, certainly capable and probably know the patient a lot better than maybe the doctor does in some instances. So just something to keep in mind. And then, there's the straight up 2 doctor's notes all the time. So it's really hard though to get that. And those healthcare power of attorneys don't generally anticipate or cover gradual declines, right? It's a little bit limited. It's okay, mom had a heart episode, she's in the hospital. What decisions are we making with respect to this very clinical diagnosis? So the healthcare power of attorney really struggles to deal with the challenges and everything surrounding the dementia specific symptoms, because it's a gradual decline. It's not like you wake up with a brain aneurysm or you slip and break a pelvis. It's not something that acute. It's this buildup over time. And as I had stated earlier, it can be an 8-year path, an 8-year decline. So that's hard to deal with in a profession such as the law that likes to deal in absolutes. If this happens, then you do that, or if that happens, then you do this. So the traditional healthcare power of attorney advanced directives don't really account for this. And so that's why people got together and wanted to develop more specific guidance and a form. And then, like I said, usually that power of attorney only comes into play when the client is unconscious or maybe has a terminal illness. So very rarely, if somebody is sitting up and able to speak for themselves, will a hospital or doctor ask about their power of attorney. It's when you're actually in a coma that they start to ask about the power of attorney and an advance directive and what that looks like. So the development of the form included some supplemental instructions with an eye towards some flexibility and a very specific focus on if you have dementia, then what does that look like for you? And it addresses the unique course of the disease, and everybody's journey is different. There are no two identical dementia cases. Everybody's going to present differently. You know, I have some clients, actually, I had family members. One was very docile, very just happy, sweet, content. And we talk about how we gain skills as a, you know, going through early childhood development from baby to toddler to you know, kindergartner and so forth, and then the loss of the skills. Well, she just became the sweetest little toddler. It was just, you know, her very docile personality. But then I've had others who are just full on, I'll say Rocky Balboa. We're going to go 15 rounds and everything's a fight. And hey, Grandpa, did you eat? You know, and just going at it. So every course, every patient, every family is different in how the disease manifests itself, and the journey is different. Then we wanted to provide instructions to the healthcare agent because people are just deathly afraid of making the wrong decision. They just want to get it right. They just want to honor their loved one. And they don't want to have their siblings and their family members second guessing them and beating them up and making them feeling guilty for not doing what mom or dad wanted. So, you know, I tell people all the time, an estate plan, and especially a healthcare with an advance directive, is a gift. It is a gift to your family to understand how they can honor you when you're no longer able to speak for yourselves. And it relieves that burden from them, from having to make those decisions and not understanding what your wishes are. As much information as you can give them, the better. So they are becoming more common. And I'm seeing, at least nationwide with my attorney group, that a lot of people are incorporating the Dementia Directive. I've done it a couple times now, but only in very specific cases where the family has come to me and said, you know, or the individual said, hey, you know, my doctor said I need to be on the lookout for this, and what can I do? You know, I really sort of invite that client to open the conversation around it. But I think you're going to see more and more that it becomes rather commonplace to include, because your advance directive should be exactly what your wishes are. You know, we as attorneys provide some standard language, if you will, that's very much part of, you know, California lexicon and how we practice here. But I tell people it's a very flexible document, and it should honestly reflect all of your wishes. So write your own if you don't like the words that are on this paper. There is another foundation out there, I think it's called the 7 Wishes Foundation, and they have an entire booklet. So I have had people fill out the entire booklet, and then we scan it in and we attach it to the healthcare power of attorney, and then everything is laid out there. But for some people, that is decision paralysis. You know, the confused mind never decides. So that's just too much information. It's like box A or box B, this is what's going to happen. So, but this directive in particular that was developed was the first of its type, addressing a specific disease. And you're probably going to see a lot more of this as we move into, you know, different versions of medicine and medical science and how these things are practiced. So again, I use it as a prompt to clients when they share with me that maybe this is a concern of theirs, that if they get a diagnosis, it prompts them to think of their care differently. where they might have been a person who said, keep me alive no matter what. I want all treatment no matter what. Something like this diagnosis, they might sort of rethink that information and have some different wishes. They also might reconsider their healthcare agent and the role that that person plays. The tendency a lot of times in estate planning is just to go to the oldest child, but they may not be best suited to that. Or maybe they want to involve somebody who has a little bit more of a healthcare background, or they certainly want to involve someone who has raised their hand and stepped up to be the primary caregiver, because they're going to be with you day to day and they're going to know what's working and what's not working based on where you're at in the dementia journey. And then having the discussion with the healthcare agent so they're aware. So I tell my families this all the time. Just don't take your beautiful estate planning portfolio and put it in your safe or put it up on a shelf. First of all, your people need to know that they've been nominated to do this if you haven't talked to them ahead of time, because there's nothing worse than opening up an estate plan and going, oh my God, I had no idea I'm in charge. I don't want to do this. Or I don't want to make those decisions for mom or dad. I'm not capable of doing that. So I encourage people, as part of the planning process, have those discussions ahead of time. But then if you want to move into a dementia directive, it's a good idea to have your healthcare agent as part of that discussion so they can truly understand what your wishes are and what that looks like for you, and not have any questions about that, while you still have the cognitive function to tell them what your wishes are so that it's very clear. And again, these are hard topics, but it's a gift. It's a gift that you're giving your loved ones. So one of the very big areas on the form is this whole notion of nutritional support, because individuals eventually lose the ability to feed themselves, whether that's forgetting how to cut the meat or how to put the food into the mouth. So, you'll see sometimes in skilled nursing facilities, they have a whole team of people that goes through and does the feeding at certain meal times, to make sure that the nutritional needs are being met, and they supplement with things like Ensure and other liquid nutrition, but they may not be able to chew or swallow fully. So aspiration becomes a very big issue. And then I talked about assisted feeding or hand feeding. There may be some tube feeding involved. Individuals that, some are no tubes, none whatsoever. And others are, hey, whatever it takes to keep me alive. And then SED, so that's stopping eating and drinking. So stopping eating and drinking is a medical decision, and that is very personal to the individual, but it also can be a medical decision. And one of the, you may see a V in front of it, voluntarily stopping eating and drinking. So I have had clients who have done that. They voluntarily stopped taking nutrition and then eventually hydration. That is their choice. And people go, oh, they're starving. Well, no, they're making a choice. They're making their own choice about what their feeding needs are in terms of nutrition. But as you can see, it's very controversial. So I, again, am not a medical ethics attorney. There are different schools of thought of this, whether value-based, religious-based, what have you. But if you feel strongly around SED or VSED wishes, then those are things that should be documented. And people need to know about that. It can't just be a surprise of what that looks like. And then we get down to the, that comfort-focused feeding. What's going to keep somebody comfortable? I guarantee you, if somebody's not able to swallow, aspirating is not comfortable at all, because then they get that tube in, they have to suck everything out. Very, very, very painful. So, that's part of it, then becomes part of the pain management process. So leading the landmark case in this was back in 1990, Cruzan versus Missouri Department of Public Health. And so, the landmark Supreme Court opinions, just very basic, it said, for the purposes of this case, it's assumed that a competent person would have a constitutionally protected right to refuse life-saving hydration and nutrition. But again, competent person. So you have to make that decision while you're competent. And once you are sort of in that dementia spectrum and you're further down mild, moving towards severe, it may become a competency issue, in which case you're no longer able to make that decision for yourself. And then along in 97 came Glucksberg v. Washington. So Washington State's like one of the leading cutting edge people in right to die cases and autonomy of self. And so you'll see a lot of cases coming out of Washington State, but they just talked about the constitutionally protected right that was, enumerated and discussed in Cruzon was not simply deduced from the abstract concepts of personal autonomy, but was grounded in our nation's history and traditions and common law rule that forced medication was battery. And there is a long line of cases about that forcing medication on somebody is a form of battery, and the tradition of protecting the decisions of people to refuse unwanted treatment. But if you don't document it while you still have competency, then who's going to know, and how is your constitutional right to direct your own treatment going to be enforced? So that really becomes a key in making sure that your wishes are known in that. And then the impact of, stopping eating and drinking if there's no capacity whatsoever. As I mentioned, that becomes a medical decision, medical care and basic support and keeping people comfortable, and what that looks like, because you basically go from solids, then maybe to tube feeding, and then eventually to IVs. And then at that point, organs start to shut down and in different stages of that whole process. This is just a little bit of the form. It's available. I'm going to give you some resources at the end, but you'll see it's been around since 2017, this version. And every resource I found points everybody back to dementia-directive.org. So that's a website, dementia-directive.org, and I'll have that at the end. But you can see it's just a 6 or 7 page form. It walks you through all of the planning for the future, why is it important, and then it gives the instructions. And then it also gives the instruction to fill it out and send it to your healthcare provider, mail them a copy. So if you still do have a primary health physician, it's good to put that in there. Or if you belong to a big HMO, Sutter uses MyChart or Epic, and Kaiser has their own healthcare medical record system. Take a copy with you to your next visit and get it uploaded into your chart, and make sure that that happens so that they have it on file. Questions? Any questions pop up? I know this is a lot of information. Thank you all for hanging with us.
It did, but you answered it all at the same time.
Okay.
They were just wondering if there was a new updated form for the directive, and then you went to that screen, so you answered it.
Yeah. Right now, 2017 is the latest and greatest. I was just on there the other day, double checking that, because that's what I had on file as well. So yeah, but it doesn't hurt to look. But like I said, healthcare directives are your wishes. So, you can always write your own. The problem is not to just get so over prescriptive or get so hyper technical in your analysis that you never get it done. So that's kind of, something is better than nothing at all. All right, so communicating client instructions. So the instructions of the form explain how it coordinates with the healthcare power of attorney and HIPAA and who gets the information. So it walks through the explanation of the form, which is very helpful. And then in the form, it goes through those stages of dementia and outlines what medical interventions, what location, and then specifically addresses nutrition and hydration at each stage. So remember, we have early, mid, and mild, and then we have late and severe. So it breaks it down into the 3 stages, which I always find helpful, because, as the continuum goes, so does the care go. And then it has the signatures and then the list of the individuals with whom the form will be shared. So the healthcare agent, the doctor, the healthcare profession, and then of course, institutions. So if you do find yourself going to assisted or skilled nursing and you still do have your competency, you might want to make sure that they know this on intake so that they have it and make it part of your care plan. Because as I've learned over the years, if it's not part of the care plan, it doesn't exist. So you have to make sure that it is in your record and everybody is fully aware of it. So it's good to have it and good to share it widely if you have some specific wishes. And then a very nice part of the form, even I just list this here of frequently asked questions. In the actual form is like a whole page of frequently asked questions, because, we don't all have computers and it's not always at our fingertips, but it answers a lot of the basic questions about the form, about dementia, about why we do this, and what's involved with it. So I thought that was really cool. I always like that when there are FAQs included with the actual form that they pertain to. So very helpful to have that. Here are some resources. There's a JAMA article that's out there. And I think that Janice had emailed a PDF of the presentation, so you can type that into your web browser if you want. JAMA, Journal of American Medical Association, JAMA. There's like one of the front runners in terms of publishing medical information, the run right up there with the NIH and the CDC and the information that they put out. But JAMA is a peer-reviewed journal, so the information that comes out of JAMA tends to be pretty well vetted and pretty good. They're a very nice NPR program, talks about a living will. I think it's an audio program. It might have had a video format at one time, but it's from 2018, so it's about 6 years old now. But if you're an auditory person and just like to listen to podcasts or something, the NPR, they did one about a living will for Alzheimer's specifically. So had to do very much with the Dementia Directive, kind of on the very forefront when they were developing the front. And then again, you can find that form at dementia-directive.org. And there's, like I said, there's other organizations out there that do lovely job. There's the 7 Wishes Foundation, I think is what it's called. Another group, I get emails from them all the time because I did a couple of their webinars, is called End Well. What does that look like for you, ending well? So they have a lot of resources. And then our local Alzheimer's support group and the National ALZ organization. I think they're at alz.org. So that's what I had for you today. Any other last minute questions or dialogue that was prompted?
There's no current questions posted. I'll give a few minutes to see if anybody has anything they want to ask. This has been a lot of good information. Thank you.
Good. Yeah. And if you want to, if you happen to be a social media person, I encourage you to go on and give us a follow at Facebook and Instagram. We post information all the time, at least 3 times a week. On various topics: estate planning, probate, why you need wills, healthcare directives. But my YouTube channel is pretty robust. Matter of fact, I need to record this one. Janice, did this record by chance?
It did record, yes.
Fantastic. So if you could send me the link to the recording, I'm going to post this on my YouTube channel because I think it's just important information. My goal is always to educate our community and provide resources and tools that are out there. To that end, I'm going to give a shameless plug. The lovely little new independent bookstore in Roseburg Square, Bookish, Bookish. It's just down from the yogurt mill. I'm next to the taqueria. I'm going to be doing an evening event there centered around the book, I'm Dead, Now What? And we're going to do a little community education event. So give Bookish a follow on Instagram. They have a fantastic Instagram account, and all of their events are on there. But that'll be coming up in August. I'm so excited. I just met with them the other day, and we're going to do that in the community.
Oh, that's very good. I don't have any other questions. Just, posts of wonderful seminar. Thank you. Very detailed and informative. So I will be sending an email to everybody to fill out the MCLE evaluation form, and I will also send you your certificates. So please do return your evaluation forms to me, as we do need to collect them.
Yeah.
So,
and for the record, I did talk for 50 minutes, so you get your credit.
Yeah.
It's 50-minute hours.
All right. Well, thank you, Gina.
Oh, you're very welcome. And thank you all for joining us today.
All right. Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.